This is a final test of 41990, which is one of the finest receivers ever made, Luxman R-117. Occasionally when I work on an item, I drift off and forget that I'm working on a consumer grade item. And this is one of those items that I always feel I'm working on a commercial grade item. It's just designed and constructed that well, and just a pleasure to work on. So what we're going to do here is test this item, and for those not familiar with how we do things here, is we have test panel, and we're going to be able to hear the sound, but really that's not going to be a very definitive I'm just looking at the software here. Indicator. What's a good the definitive indicator will be the dual trace oscilloscope, which is this device here. The upper display is going to show left, lower display to the right will show the right. And above that, you'll see a frequency counter to the item's right, our viewing left. There's two orange dots. They are the 0 points of a horizontal bar graph that's going to indicate decibels for us as we do some measurements. Okay, so let's back this out. And this item came in with two sets of problems. Set number one was typical problems of oxidized switches and controls, no big deal. After all of that was done, every time the item would power up, the left channel was typically 10 to 20 dB below the right. And sometimes I could remedy that by pressing in these buttons in just random order. And these are not really mechanical buttons. They just send a pulse or series of pulses to integrated circuits, which actually do the switching. The older receivers had mechanical buttons that did that. And so what was happening is that channel imbalance would occur, and the only way I could get it back was by randomly pushing some of the other buttons. The other thing is, whenever you went to a different mode, say you're on CD, if you went to phono, you could actually hear leakage from CD coming out of the phono mode or any of the other modes. Okay, that's all been resolved. Beautiful machine. And so what we're going to do is feed in a sine wave. I have to take the light off because it saturates this camera when we look at the scope. We're going to feed a sine wave into the CD and do some measurements. So this item employs the design that most amplifiers and receivers employ, where it's typically 5 to 10 second turn on delay, and then we'll just turn this up. The output relay click in after the output stages have biased up correctly. So we're going to turn it on. Beautiful receiver also too. And typically within 10 seconds it's going to come on. What we're going to do is we're going to be able to hear the signal coming from our generator, and we'll be able to see, as I'm going to just work the volume control here, you can be able to see left channel is the upper display on the scope, right channel bottom display, and the bar graphs indicate the respective left and right channel amplitude in decibels. As we turn the volume up, the tones are going to override my voice and distort the microphone, and as we turn the volume up to full volume, it's going to hurt my ears and speakers. So what we're going to do is switch over to our dummy loads. Dummy loads stress the amplifier the same as speakers, but convert the audio energy into heat energy. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to go back to there you go, the sound, because what we're going to do is a frequency response test on this. And what we want to do when we do the frequency response test is take a look at those two bar graphs, and they should not vary. They're both indicating 0 dB right now. They may vary by 1 decibel, plus or minus. But they're going to be essentially flat across the entire audio spectrum, which is what we want. So right now we're feeding in a 400 cycle sine wave. I'm going to switch the speakers back on. Hopefully that is not overriding my voice. But we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to switch in. And you may or may not be able to hear that. That's 20 hertz. What we really want to be watching is this. The bar graph hasn't changed. We're still set at 0 dB, both channels. And you can see that the period on the scope has changed because the frequency has changed. So we'll turn this up. And we're going to approach the point where the frequency response to this microphone will not be picking up the audio, but that's where we have the oscilloscope and the bar graph. We're starting to approach the hearing range of dogs and bats. I'm just going to step this all the way up to 20K, and we're going to probably see, I know we're not hearing that now because I can't hear that. Of course, I can't hear much above 10K anymore. Right there is 20K, and the amplitude indicators are still set at 0 dB. Nothing changes. This is flat across the entire audio spectrum. Let's go back to 400 hertz. There we go. And the other thing I want to do is just drive this to full power. So I'm going to go back and put the dummy loads back on. Oh, the other thing I want to do is demonstrate that there is no more leakage. And I don't like to use jargon, but leakage means when we select, for instance, tape 1, when this item came in, you could still hear the CD coming through on tape 1 and tape 2 and phono. And that's all been eliminated by the replacement of those two input analog switching integrated circuits. So let's go back to CD, and I'm going to go back to the scope, get the light off of it. We're going to go back to dummy loads, and we're going to run this up to full power. Full power is achieved when the top and the bottom of the sine waves start to flatten out. And we don't want to stay there too long because that's when we blow things up. All right, so here we go. And let's get a little less. Yeah. That's, whoa, I get nervous when we do that. That's full power. I'll sneak up on it a little bit here. When you see the top and the bottom of the sine wave start to flatten, that's full power. And you notice they're equal, but wow. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of our demonstration. Very, very nice receiver. Probably was one of the top of the line at its time. Also has wireless infrared remote. And just a great machine. And that's the end of this test of 41990.